Hey Geography peeps, how you doing? So as you know, this is filler week, which means every time we finish 4 episodes, we take some time off to research for the next ones. But I don't leave you hanging. I still give you some topical videos so at least you have something on this channel to watch. So today I kind of wanted to talk about something. On Reddit, I saw this picture. It's a hypothetical picture of what the world would look like if all of the land and water was inverted on planet Earth. And it really kind of got me thinking, how would a world like this function? It's not immediately easy to understand because you kind of have to think upside down and you have to kind of study the ocean's topography more than the dry land. First of all, the strangest thing about this planet is that all the land would be interconnected in every single cardinal direction. That means, theoretically, you could circumnavigate the entire globe by walking in either north to south or east to west, avoiding every major body of water. That means the entire planet would technically only have one big major continent with large island clusters, which are the inland seas like the Caspian Sea, the Black Sea, or the Great Lakes. The Mediterranean Sea would look like an island, but it would still be connected by that very narrow Strait of Gibraltar, which would now be the Gibraltar Isthmus, I guess. The Gulf of Bothnia would be like the weirdest peninsula, like connected by a bunch of splotchy, lakey isthmuses. What's the plural of isthmus? When thinking like this, you have to realize mountains become trenches and trenches become mountains. Now, in terms of land formations, you kind of have to ask yourself, are we measuring by sea level or by ocean floor level? And if that's the case, if we ask by sea level, then of course the Himalayas would be the deepest trench. However, if it's by ocean level, then Mauna Kea on Hawaii would be the deepest lake. However, Chimborazo in Ecuador would be the trench closest to the center of the earth. All the islands would become lakes and all the lakes would become islands. Lake Baikal would probably be like one of the most remote islands on the planet. This means that Challenger Deep in the Mariana Trench would most likely be the tallest mountain, dwarfing Everest at about 36,000 feet or 11,000 meters. Bouvet Island would be like the most remote oasis. We would still have the same tectonic plates, but the direction of impact would have to be backwards and inverted as well. So instead of the Himalayas converging to create mountains, they would be subducting to create trenches. This means that the Ring of Fire would now become like the bowl of desolation, as all of the deep trenches would now become really high peaks that would barricade the Pacific Valley below. Now here's the problem I have with the image. It doesn't accurately portray the underwater topography of our planet. I think maybe a little bit more of an accurate depiction would be this picture by Franz Bloch at 3develop.nl. For some reason, there's a large mountain range that splits right in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, creating a rain shadow effect with a desert in the middle of the Pacific. That wouldn't be there. The only kind of rise would be the East Pacific Ridge that goes close to South America, but then it kind of cuts off. The whole area would be kind of generally flat, as the oceanic trenches would be the only mountains in the area, as all the Pacific Islands would be like lakes. And here's the coolest thing. The longest mountain range on this theoretical planet would be the Mid-Atlantic Range, which bisects the entire planet from the Arctic to the Antarctic. And the coolest thing is that this new planet would have like a triple convergence mountain range with the Mid-Indian, Southwest, and Southeast Indian ridges all smashing into one. I don't think I agree with the amount of ice on this planet, and obviously I don't believe that the new lake of Greenland would be all blue. Half of it, most of it would probably be still frozen underwater. Also, I hate the fact that this is a Mercator projection. I can't stand the Mercator. It's so disproportionate, it just drives me crazy. Another interesting thing to grasp would be the concept of continental shelves. At some point in our geological history, the continental shelves were exposed and had life on them during the ice ages. Over time, water levels rose and concealed them, and that's why today we have offshore oil deposits. In an inverted world, I guess that would mean that the continental shelves would have been covered first and then later exposed, sort of like those areas in Egypt where you can find whale bones in the middle of the desert. And then you kind of have to ask yourself, like, how would this world function and could it even sustain life? We always tend to kind of err on the side of, oh, well, if it has water, then of course. But there's a lot of other things that kind of go into the mix. This is where you kind of have to think scientifically. Our planet right now is about 70% water, and it's able to kind of sustain a meteorological atmosphere which allows condensation and precipitation of water to lands across the planet. If our planet only had 30% water, would it be able to sustain that much precipitation and condensation? I don't know. And let's assume that all the oceans on this new planet are saline, just like our oceans, and if that was the case, then where would all the fresh water come from? Would they come from the ice caps on the tops of the mountains? And if that's the case, if we can't get enough precipitation and condensation, would there even be enough ice on those mountain caps? I don't know. Would any or all of these mountain ranges create a rain shadow effect, creating an entire desert landscape across half of all the land? I don't know. It's hard to say because we can't recreate this scenario in a controlled environment because we're talking about a planet. We can't recreate a planet. We can theorize and it's fun, but until then, It's just kind of like brain candy. And there's a lot of other things you have to kind of consider, like what would caves look like? Would they be like underwater pocket reservoirs? And what would a sinkhole look like? Would it be like an underwater land pipe? What would the role of marshes and swamplands look like? I mean, would they still remain but still be a little backwards? I mean, also, what would Antarctica look like? I mean, it would still kind of be frozen, but would the land still be water? And how does the ice look like? It's confusing. And let's assume that life can thrive on this planet. What would culture look like? And how would people live and thrive in what areas and what type of resources would they have? I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know. Write some stuff in the comments and debate about it, fight about it, argue about it, troll each other about it. Geography? More like geography. Fight, fight, fight! But in the end, the point is that we live on this planet the way how it is, and I kind of like it. I kind of like the way how our planet is. So that's it for now. Thanks for joining me on this hypothetical quest. Subscribe if you want, and hope you have a good one.